Thank you very much, Adesh, for giving me the floor. And let me first thank Cairo Institute, but also the AIDS organization that co-sponsored this event, and Algerian civil society for inviting me to attend this panel and speak about my concern and my work in relation to the ongoing situation in Algeria. Let me make it clear that peaceful assembly is a fundamental human rights guaranteed by International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in its Article 21 and other relevant international covenants, regional and international. Its exercise is a sign of a democratic and healthy society where individuals can shape their own futures, take part in the conduct of public affairs, and decide for themselves. The negative image that stigmatizes, protests, dissents, and those who organize assembly to express grievance and demand good governance has to change. Therefore, peaceful assembly should not be subject to the use of force by law enforcement officials. Where is unavoidable, it must comply with the strict principle of necessity and proportionality as per international law and standard to which Algeria is bound. In addition, states have a responsibility to protect peaceful protests and ensure that there is an enabling environment for protesters to assemble safely and to take action against those who instigate violence. Since the beginning of this year, I'm very concerned about the human rights situation in Algeria in general, and in particular, the exercise of the right to freedom of peaceful assembly, freedom of expression, the situation of human rights defenders, and the civic space. As you all know, the Iraq movement has been revived since February 2021 and has gained momentum and massive support over the last month. The protesters who often gather in cities and wilayas all across the country on Friday have been largely peaceful according to the information we received. Nonetheless, the government response has been on multiple occasions one of the disproportionate force, including the use of tear gas and baton against unarmed and peaceful protesters. Furthermore, the government has tried to keep demonstrations from happening in the first place. I express my concern to the Algerian authority at the arrest and detention of many protesters connected to Iraq movement for exercising their fundamental right to protest. While most protesters have been released on the same day that they have been arrested, some have been charged with vague charges such as attack on the national unity, dissemination of wrongful information, demoralizing the army, or endangering Islam. I would like to stress that protesters should never be criminalized or arrested for their peaceful participation in protest. The criminalization and repression of peaceful protests are in contradiction with the state's obligation laid out in the ICCPR. This is why I'm concerned about the communique of the Minister of Interior of Algeria on 9 May, which said that they will consider all demonstrations to be illegal and violating the Constitution and laws of Algeria that didn't clearly indicate the organizer, time, and places that the protest will take place. My mandate has constantly emphasized that a notification regime which allows organizations to notify the authority about the intention to protest and where they will protest should be the rule. If we look at the Iraq movement from the information we received, this is a social movement that is decentralized without a clear hierarchy or structure. As a consequence, a lot of protests are spontaneous or quasi-spontaneous and don't have a clear organizer. The government should therefore refrain from criminalizing the participants of such spontaneous or quasi-spontaneous protests. I'm calling the Algerian government to put an end to the disproportionate use of force against protesters and to halt the persecution and targeting of human rights defenders, journalists, and people involved in the Iraq movement. I further call on the government to seek a meaningful and constructive dialogue with the Iraq movements and to the greater Algerian public in general. I also call on the international community, especially UN member states, to use all the pressure available to convince the Algerian government from using force against protesters and to facilitate a dialogue between the government and the Iraq movement that can lead to real change. It is important because I think Algerian and Algerian people need a real transition to democracy in a peaceful society. My mandate and other special procedure mandate holder have sent multiple letters to the Algerian government in which we have expressed our concern regarding these issues. Unfortunately, some of these letters, which are available on the website of OSHR, do not receive substantive answer that we are expecting from the governments. I'm also using this opportunity to also encourage Algerian governments to reply to those communications, as this will help us as a mandate holder to understand clearly the situation and to also know exactly what to advise states on the measure to take in order to enforce the enjoyment of this fundamental freedom, the right to peaceful assembly. Let me also say that I have requested from the Algerian government to allow me to visit the country. I send multiple reminders because I think that in this current situation, my visits is important to assess the situation on the ground, to see the measure that the government is taking to ensure the enjoyment of these rights. And my visits will allow me also to advise government through reports and the recommendation on what steps to take to ensure that the country return to the peaceful situation where those fundamental freedoms will be enjoyed. I also call on Algerian governments to release those protesters that are arrested and which I send multiple communication. It's important that the government protects the rights of journalists to inform the public and to also monitor the behavior of law enforcement. No one should be criminalized or should be condemned for exercising his fundamental freedom protected by the international governing on civil and political rights. It is a duty of the states to ensure that these rights are enforced and to take all necessary measures to protect those who are exercising this fundamental freedom. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope through this panel to be able also to understand more the ongoing contest in the country. Thank you very much.